Welcome to Tuning Room TV.
Shoot it. I bet I'm no different than probably 99% of the people. When I first started out calling, you know, I'd buy a call, I'd pick it up, you know, get it out of the package, blow that thing, and it wouldn't make the sounds that I think it, you know, it should have made. And immediately I'd blame the call and not myself, and I'd tear that call apart and then try to put it all back together and retune it. And I had no clue how to do it, you know. And most of the time, you know, when you buy a call and it comes to you, it's been checked out and tested and it works. But we have this, you know, as humans, we have this thing that it's always the paintbrush and not the painter. We're going to show you, we're going to walk you through some simple steps and how to tune these calls. And we're going to take you from the simple parts of doing it all the way through to the more advanced stuff for, you know, the contest callers or people that are going to require a little bit more out of a call. The first thing that I suggest you do, especially if you know the call is working properly, is you take a Sharpie, get a fine tip Sharpie, and you take it and you put it right at the base of the wedge where the wedge and the reed hit, and just make a mark going across there. That's going to give you a basic reference line to start out at when you put that call back together. Now, how to get this call apart, several ways you can do it, but there's only one real right way of doing it. And I learned the hard way. My contest call way back in the day, I had these broken guts in them, and they're one of a kind. Getting ready for a contest, and the call wasn't sounding right. Took it apart. I seen that I had a cracked reed. I had a bubble in it. So I went to take it apart, and I twisted the call apart. I broke the guts. The set of guts that I'd won a lot of contests with, I broke it. From that day forward, I kind of learned a new trick. And don't twist the guts out, push them out. You can take and turn it upside down and smack it against a hard surface, or you can take and put your thumb over the top and push down on it. And there's a ramp on that tone board, and once you break it to a certain, or push it down to a certain point, it'll relieve all the tension on it. Then you can take and twist it out because there's no tension on it. You pull it out. This is a call that I used all last fall. You can see that it's kind of dirty. The reed's even sticking to it. There's a dog hair on there. There's some dirt on there. But you can take this apart. You can run it under some water, some soapy water, warm water, and rinse it off. There's three components on this Goose call for the tone board assembly is what we call it. You've got the actual tone board itself. This is the part that the reed is going to lay on. It's got the groove slot in here and where the reed is going to fall into. And it's got a little ramp here. And then you've also got the wedge that's going to sit on top of the reed, and then you've got the reed itself. So it's a three-part system. The reed sits on here, rides on this flat spot, and then it vibrates and travels up and down on here and goes down into the tone trough. And then you've got also the wedge, the smaller piece here, and it's got a little bit of a ramp to it. And you want the smaller end of the ramp to go into the call. But I want to walk you through a few different things about these reeds. These reeds have a natural curve to them, a bend to them. They come in a giant roll. They have somewhat of a set to them. You look at them, and they look flat, but they're really not. And there's a way to figure out how to do that. There's a couple of ways. You can lay it on a flat surface, and you can spin the reed. If it spins on the center, you know the curve is up. If it spins on the ends, you know the curve is down. This one here, I happen to have it spinning really good, so I know that the curve is up right now. The other way to do it, you can take and put it between your fingers, and you can bend it. And it'll always bend the direction of the curve no matter which way you turn that reed in your hand. It'll always bend the same way. Okay, so I know that curve's up. Now, what is that telling me? The curve is up or down, and how does that relate to the Goose call? Now, most people are going to want a curve going up. The guys that blow really, really light forward air pressure, they're going to probably want the curve down. But if you're sticking the call's locking up, and you got the curve facing down, you're going to want to turn it over. So it's going to require a little bit more air under the reed. All I do is take the reed that was in there, find that curve on there, place it back in there, just set it down in there, and I want that reed tip to fall into the tone channel. I don't want it to overhang. I don't want it to have too big of a gap. I want it right to the edge. Then got it between my thumb and finger, so I'm kind of holding both items at one time. I'll take my wedge and I'll place that back on top of the call, and that wedge has a slope to it. That slope, the short end, or the shorter end of the slope is going to be the part that's going to fall into the call, and then the farther you push this in, the more tension is going to be in there. That's what's going to hold everything in. It's just a friction fit. So I've got all these items, and I've got them rough set in place. I got the tone board, the reed, and the wedge, and it's somewhat close. Right now they're not really after being finite with them, but I got them all together so they're not going to come apart. I got them pinched between my thumb and index finger, and then I just slide it into the call and put a little bit of tension on it. So everything's kind of held in place. Then I'll move that reed around a little bit to get it in that spot, and you'll push it in with your fingertip. You just push that reed tip in, and you want it to just fall in without barely touching the edge of the trough. And if you feel it kind of hanging up or grabbing on something, then you want to move that reed around. So I've got it pretty close now, and then what I do is take my thumb and I put it right on top of the reed and right against the wedge. My index finger I'll push down here, and I'll pinch down on that reed and that tone board, and that's going to hold them two pieces together. And with my thumb against the wedge, then I'll push it in. I push it straight in. I don't want to twist it again. You push it straight in. Now I've got the black line very close to where I wanted. I've got the reed tip where I want it falling in there. Put the call back together and blow it. This call, I've moved the reed so that we're going to show you what it's going to sound like, or what it does when this reed tip isn't falling into this call properly. And hopefully you can hear that reed is hanging up on there. And it looks like, if you just look at it, you think, oh, that's pretty close, but it's actually not. And the real test is when you blow it. And this call is going to sound not very good. See what I mean? It's kind of fuzzy, rattly, just not very non-goosey. Now I'm just wiggling it back around. All I'm doing is moving that tone board side to side, and it's taking that reed with it. And that reed will eventually find that slot and fall down in there. You just got to kind of move it around. I'm going to get it right back to where it is and check it out, test it out. So now I got it right back to where I like it for in the field. There's a couple of different things you can do to change the pitch of this goose call and how hard or how easy it's going to be to blow. You can make it from a high pitch call to a low pitch call. There's two ways you can do that. One is you can lengthen or shorten the reed, and the second thing is how much tension or how far you push all this whole assembly into the call. And I'll show you real quick. I'm going to pull this out just a little bit in the call. I'm going to do it from one extreme to the other with not changing the length of the reed, but just how much tension is put on this reed. So it's going to sound, it's not going to sound quite right, but just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So there's very little friction. I haven't pushed this into the call very far at all. And this is what it's got a real deep, raspy, mellow sound. The raspiness is just part of this call. This is a G3. This is the one I hunted with most all fall. I just pulled it off the lanyard. But in order to make that call a little crisper, a little sharper, I'm going to push this whole assembly in farther. See what I'm doing? I'm pushing it in farther, and I'm going to take it beyond where I would consider it normally should be, but that's just going to show you how this sound is going to change from one end of the spectrum to the other. So now it's going to be real sharp and hard sounding. But notice how sharp it is. It's a lot quicker responding because there's more tension on it, and it's also higher pitch. So I didn't change the length of the reed, but I just changed how much tension is on that reed. And in doing so, these calls all have a power band, and that power band, you know, from really high pitched to really deep pitched. And some calls, you know, have a power band that fits in there, and it's a sliding scale. But the farther you push that in there and the more tension you put on that reed, the less bottom it's going to have on it. It's not going to have that full bottom end goosey whoa whoa sound. So you lose some of that power band on the bottom end the tighter you push that call in there, and you gain it more the less tension you end. But then the opposite is true. the farther you put it in and the more tension you have, the sharper, the crisper the crack's going to be. So it's just a matter of personal preference and what you need for your particular hunting style. So the next thing we can do, and I'm going to take this apart and I'm going to retune it a little bit differently here. Okay, and once again I push that whole assembly in before I twisted it out to relieve that tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that reed just about where I want it. What I'm doing, I'm going to try to make this call a little deeper sounding and a little bit harder to blow, so I'm going to make that reed longer. I'm doing this on the extreme end just to show you. We made that, you know, almost 1/8 of an inch longer. You know, at the tip of the reed to just barely get to the edge there. And that reed from where we had it set the first time is about 1/8 of an inch longer. Got the tone, or the wedge is in the same distance as it was before, but this call is going to blow a lot differently sounding. It's going to take a little bit more forward air pressure. You're going to have to pop it in there a little bit crisper and harder, but it's going to have a fuller, deeper sound. So change it that way. Then if we want it, if we want it to blow easier, higher pitched, sharper sounding, we're going to try to keep the wedge in the same spot, but we're going to try to drive the reed and the tone board down in further. And to do that, I want to just pinch that reed against the tone board, and then I'll take and come in here with a call in this instance and just tap. And what it does is it moves that whole assembly, or these two parts, down into the call, but leaves the wedge where you want it to be. Now occasionally we're filming this, so it's kind of hard and awkward for me to do it down on the table here, but I've got it so it's hanging up. So all I'm going to do is wiggle that a little bit and let that reed fall down in there. I'm going to keep doing it so I can go on the complete opposite end of the spectrum here. I'm covering up that line that we originally put. Now there's a little bit of black there. That's because that marker got on the wedge itself, but it's not on the reed. And this is going to be real sharp sounding, probably almost like a snow goose. But see how I just changed the sound of the call by changing the length of the reed, and I made it easier or harder to blow. You can also do that another way, and that's how far you push that call in. If I push this whole assembly in, all three units, the reed, the wedge, and the tone board in farther into the call, it's going to continue to get sharper sounding. So this is that real short reed, and I pushed it in even farther, so it's really going to be higher pitched now. But see how that changed the sound. Now I'm going to twist this out because I want to keep this all in the same spot, but this isn't how I would normally do that. So I'm going to bring it out, and I'm going to put very minimal tension on it, but keep that reed relatively short, the same distance it was, and it's not much pressure is put on there, and this is going to be a little fuller sounding, but still easy to blow. It's a little bit raspy, so I can push it in just a little bit farther to change that tension on there. Well, that little tip there, I promise you, that's something not a lot of call makers, not a lot of call tuners, and not a lot of call makers know that. The amount of pressure you put in there, everybody always thought it was the length of the reed. You know, if the longer it was, the harder and deeper it was going to be to blow. The shorter it was, the higher pitched and easier it was going to be. But the second part of that is how much tension you put on that reed by how far you push that in there is going to make the call either have more bottom or more top end. Just to show you the other aspect of it. So I'm going to put that in there, and that's about where normally I'll blow that call. For this particular call, this is where I normally tune it with that wedge about that far in. This is going to be a little bit deeper sounding. So it's a little deeper sounding. Now, if I want it to be a little bit crisper and a little bit sharper, I like the bottom end, so I'm not going to push that whole assembly in. I'm just going to make that reed shorter. And what I do is, again, like when we were pushing the call in, we hold tension. So what I do is I squeeze again, I push down on that reed, and then squeeze against the back of the tone board. And that's going to hold them two items together. And what I'm going to attempt to do is slide the reed and the tone board into the call further, but leave the wedge in the same spot. And all I do is I'll take You know, you can take a hammer or a small hammer or something, but I just use a caul. It's readily available, and it works great. And I just squeeze down and hold tension, and I'll tap it down into the caul, and I'm going to make it go further than the black line just to show you kind of what it does. Okay, and when I did that the second time, I didn't hold a lot of tension, and you can see that that reed is jammed down into there. So all I need to do is move that, slide that back and forth a little bit, the tone channel, and it's hanging up. See right now when I'm pushing in there, it's hanging up. That's what you want to avoid. I'm just going to move that just a little bit, slide that out, and now it's falling in there just right. And now this caul is going to be a little bit sharper, crisper sounding. Now notice it's still got good bottom on it, but it's a sharper, crisper sound. So I like that right there. One other thing you can do to get a fuller sound is you can take and back that reed tip away from the edge of that tone channel and create a little bit more of a gap, and I'll do it just on a pronounced basis, but see how much I've got more of a gap in there, and it's going to create a more hollow sound. And again, I'm going further than you probably would want to tuning, but just to give you some sort of a visual reference and then an audio reference as you're listening and watching this. But see how that took a lot of the sharpness off, and it lets a little bit more air blow through the reed. But that, you know, in the simplest form is how to tune a goose call. Now, say you've got a reed that has a crack or a bubble in it, and what you'll notice is that it'll look like a little calcium deposit on a reed, and I don't have one here. I haven't blown a reed out in a call in quite a while. I'll talk about that in a minute, but what happens is there's a lot of layers of mylar that are sandwiched together to get the thickness that you want. And as this reed is traveling up and down and it falls down into that tone trough a little bit, it starts hitting on the edge and it starts delaminating and separating the different pieces of mylar that are stacked together and glued together, and it starts pulling them apart, and the call starts sounding flat. Sometimes it starts, you know, buzz sounding, but you'll need to replace that. And if you've got the reed with a line in it, you can kind of match them up, get them close, and then put a little bit of a line in it. Or you can just go through the whole process of what I just did right there. I'll make the reed just a little bit longer. I'm going to put a new reed in here. I'm going to look for the curve. I always just put it, it's just quicker for me to put it between my fingers, and I'm going to bend it. I found the curve. I'm going to set it, push it down in here, find the sweet spot that I like, right about there. I'm just kind of guessing, get it close, push it straight in, get the tension that I want, and then I'm just going to give it a test run and see what I like from there. Now me, I could live with that sound, that's fine, but you can change it from there. Just like we said, just back up and follow those steps that we just talked about. Now, all of these goose calls, we've got the new Warbird and Mongoose over here. I've been working on tuning, and in our G3 from last year, all of these calls are designed to run with an unshaved reed. Now, people say, well, you know, why not shave the reeds? Why not, you know, this and that? And my whole deal is, unless you are contest calling, and even then I could argue it, you shouldn't have, if the call is designed properly, you should not have to shave the reed to get the desired sounds that you want. But some guys still want to do it. But the deal is, when you start shaving a reed, you're basically taking a knife and you're scraping across the surface of the reed, and you're taking thickness out of the reed that was put there originally. These goose reeds, most goose reeds run at about 14 thousandths thickness, and guys are shaving them down to, you know, 12 or 10 thousandths in thickness, but you're taking material off of them. And every time you start taking material off them, you start taking away the lifespan of the reed. And for me, you know, back in the days when I was contest calling and I was shaving reeds, I would be lucky to get 3 routines out of a reed. Then I decided, man, that's just not very smart. I could get in the middle of a routine in the middle of a contest and blow a reed out, which it had happened a few times. So why not just put a full reed in there in a call that's designed to sound right with a full reed in it? It's going to last me. My reeds last me 2 to 3 seasons normally in a goose call when they're unshaven. I'd much rather have that and have a reliable piece of equipment day in and day out that I can make the sounds that I need and not have to mess with it and worry about, retuning it, middle of the hunt and so on forth. But we'll get into shaving a reed for guys that like to shave them, but that's just my 2 cents on why we don't shave reeds. And the calls are designed to take a full reed so that they're going to last you in the field longer, so you don't have to go through this retuning scenario all the time. But shaving reeds, we'll talk about that. And how I do it and how some people do it is two different ways, but it's just they're 6 to 1, half a dozen to the other, and I'll tell you why the way I do it or did it is the way I like to do it. Some guys will take and they make a little clamp system on a round piece of stock. They'll put a clamp and it'll clamp it right down. I don't like to do that because it puts too much tension and rigidity in the whole system, and I can't work on this reed because it's not on a flat surface and it's hard to scrape against it. Now we don't lay it on a flat surface and try to scrape because you can't get the knife down on there to get flat across it, so that doesn't work. Even a smaller flat stock piece, it doesn't give me the ability to get in a precise location like a piece of round material. And this is a part of an old call I've used throughout the years. I've used pieces of PVC pipe, but just something that I can get my finger in and then my index finger in to hold it like this. I'll set the reed on top. I always look for the curve, try to find the curve. I found the curve right here, and I place it on here. And all I'm doing is trying to remove little bits of material. And I hold it with my thumb. And the reason I hold it with my thumb and not a clamp is that I'm on a round surface. And that round surface gives me the advantage of being able to rock this reed on that surface, and I could get to a specific spot where I want to and put tension down on the knife, and it hits the bottom of here, so I can take material off in a specific spot that I want. So I can rock that back and forth. And when you put that in a clamp, it kind of holds it in one spot, and it doesn't allow you to rock that reed. And that's all I do. And all you do is I use just an X-Acto knife or just a little razor blade knife. They work well. But you just take that knife and you pull against the material. You just start taking material off, and I rock the reed back and forth to get to the specific spot on the reed that I want. Now, there's different things you can do, or guys try to do with it. Some guys try to take a little bit more off the tip, some off the sides, and leave a backbone. That's for you to experiment and try and just determine what you like the best. It will make, the more material you take off of this, it'll make the reed react faster with less forward air pressure. And that's a reason a lot of guys will try to do that. But I promise you, if you're blowing a call properly, it takes very little forward air pressure. This is a Warbird. It's got the broken gut system in it, and a lot of guys, the broken guts, people will say they take more air pressure. Honestly, they don't. If you take and do the test, just grab the call like this and blow into it like you're drinking a Coke. Don't put your hands over the end. Don't use back pressure. No back pressure to manipulate the call or make it break over. Just forward air pressure. And if you can blow into the call and make it honk, then you have the proper mechanics. If you don't, we have a Webisode out that you can review. It's an RNT Webisode, Short Reed Goose Calling 101. Check it out, and it'll walk you through the steps of how to be able to do that. And if you can put the proper mechanics into a call, if you can blow a short reed like that, you've got the proper mechanics. I'm putting very little forward air pressure into the call. In fact, guys will come up to the show and they'll blow, a call with broken guts and say, "Man, those are hard." I'm saying, not really. Here is one full breath of air into this call, and this is how long I can blow it with one full breath. So here it is. That's one full breath without taking any more air in, and that's how long I can blow the call, as opposed to this call has no broken guts, one breath of air. Didn't last any longer. It's just all about short, rapid bursts of high pressure air. And into the back of the call, it's And that's as simple as that. So with broken guts, they shouldn't take any more air, but what a broken set of guts is going to do for you. And what I mean by broken set of guts, these are game-worn guts that we've had molded. Guys, you know, they've been blown year after year, season after season, and it takes a long time to get these. And what it is it creates a groove. When this reed travels up and down thousands and thousands of times throughout, you know, your calling season, your practicing, whatever, it starts wearing in grooves. And this reed travels further on the downstroke before it comes back up and makes that crack. So what it's doing in effect is giving you more on the bottom end, more power band on the bottom end. And guys, when they blow this call, they're not used to having that much bottom on a call before it breaks over. They're used to just putting just a little bit of air in, and then it pops over and breaks over into that second note. And that's where they're getting confused, because it's the feel is different because you have more bottom. But I promise you, they're not going to blow any harder if they're tuned properly. I do like broken guts for certain situations. They're probably the sound that's going to come out of a broken guts is going to be a little fuller, a little deeper. Probably not going to be a sound that's going to carry as far as a call that doesn't have broken guts, because this is going to be a call with standard guts in it. Is going to be a little bit sharper and crisper, and those types of sounds tend to carry further on most weather conditions in most situations. You know, a good application for you know, these broken guts, if you're next to trees, hunting over water, the windless days where there's no wind and you don't want to be real sharp and blow these geese out, and also when you really want to, you know, those calm days where there's no wind, you want to just do that ground talk that if on a windy day that they're not going to hear. So there's different aspects, and I carry both on my lanyard, so you know there's an application for both of them. A lot of people ask, you know, the shaving reeds, how to shave them and where. I tried to cover that pretty good. You kind of got to just get in there and order a bunch of reeds, and depending on how you blow. But I'm a big proponent of the more you learn how to tune your call, the better call operator you're going to become, because you learn to identify and recognize the different nuances of, you know, making that reed longer, making it shorter. You know, what happens if you have a little bit of a gap there or not. You know, a couple things with shaving reeds. You know, I showed you how to shave a reed, and I do it on a flat surface like this, and you'll end up getting, you know, I'll do another one here, but you'll end up getting some burrs on the edge. You know, some guys will take sandpaper and then they'll sand against that. Well, the sandpaper has a bunch of tiny, depending on how, you know, what grit you have, a bunch of tiny little particles that you're going against this, and all you're doing is creating a divot in between those layers of mylar, and you're just enhancing or speeding up the process of that reed delaminating as it's dropping down into that. You know, you got two layers, but there's more than two layers dropping in and out of that tone channel, and all of a sudden, you know, they're rubbing and now they're splitting apart, and that's when you get the delamination. So what I always, you know, would do with this reed when I've got these little, you call them hairs, whatever you want, but just little parts, but I just take and run my finger across it, or just take this flat sharp knife and just peel it across like so and get them off. The reason, you know, some guys will use sandpaper to sand the reed down. They'll go like this and sand the reed down, and that can work, but it's gonna really shorten the lifespan of that reed, for the simple fact, or the simple thing, as I said before, you know, even running it down there, the sandpaper, you're digging into some layers and not so much the others, whereas opposed to the knife, you're taking more of a flat surface off. So I don't particularly recommend using sandpaper. I like to use a knife on a round surface so that I can rock that reed back and forth and get exactly where I want to be on that particular reed. But once I said, you know, some guys like to leave a little bit of a backbone on it. Some guys like to take a little bit more off the tip. Some like to take some more off the edges to give it different sounds. But personally, you know, a lot of it comes down to, if a call comes to you and it's tuned right, like it should be, it should run with an unshaved reed and do everything that you want to do with it. You know, this call, you know, that call did everything from the bottom to the top, got sharp and cracked. And this call has an unshaved reed in it. So, you know, if the call comes to you and it's tuned properly, it should be able to make all them sounds. You should not have to shave the reed. And I've got a saying, it goes back to, it's the painter, not so much the paintbrush. And what I mean by that is, you know, this call is your paintbrush. This is your tool that you're doing stuff with, but it's the painter who is the artist, who is the creator. And the more you understand how to operate one of these with the proper techniques, you know, the better of a caller you're going to be. So, you know, with that said, that's pretty basic, basic call tuning all the way to the more advanced stuff. Checking out Facebook here, I've been posting back and forth with a few people, and if they had any specific questions. David Anderson says, some calls have a small dimple drilled in the bottom front of the tone channel. Does it make a big difference? No, it really doesn't, and it just has to do with the molding process. When you're injection molding things, in order for it to cool properly and the part to not shrink, it's critical that all parts of this thing remain relatively the same thickness, and that's why you'll see they'll come in and do some relief cutouts so that it's not a bunch of material in there all thick and balled up. And you'll find that some of the guts that don't have them relief cutouts, they've got a little divot in there, and that's from the material shrinking after it's come out of the mold, because there's so much more material in that particular spot. We got a question, curious on the effects of bending the tip of the reed up and what effects it has on calls. Bending the tip of the reed up is going to allow more air to pass under the reed without moving the reed. And I'm going to bend I don't bend them anymore, but there's different ways you can do it. You know, we'll stick it in here and we'll just bend the tip up. You create a bent tip like that. And that's what's going to happen is more air is going to pass. Grab a set of guts here. More air is sitting on there, more air is going to pass underneath the reed before it actually starts to vibrate, because you created a big gap there, a big hole. And this is pronounced. I mean, I probably wouldn't put a bend in there that large, but I'm just showing you here. There's more air is going to fall underneath that reed before that breaks over. It also helps, you know, if guys have problems sticking calls. One of the, you know, any Goose call that you pick up and walk into Max next door and pick up any brand call maker I want, anyone up here, and I can immediately stick it. A lot of sticking the calls, if a call's properly tuned, call sticking has a lot more to do with people's mechanics than any other thing. The closer the tip of your tongue is to this mouthpiece, the closer your tip of the tongue is to this mouthpiece, or the reed actually, the more likelihood you're going to have a stick in the call. Now, if you can learn, like I don't blow a call. I've got friends at home or around the country, and they'll say, tune a call for me, and we'll spend 15, 20 minutes, and they're really good Goose callers, but they use the tip of their tongue, and they will stick a call and stick a call. And I can blow that same call for 15 minutes straight and never stick it, because I don't use the tip of my tongue for 99% of the notes that I make. I use the middle or the back part of my tongue. I make k-k, k-k, or g-g-g-g, or oof, oof, oof sounds instead of T-word sounds. I use K or G, or use my larynx reference words to break the call, and not T-words. You use the T-word as t-t-t-t-t-t-t, and you're jamming that air too close to that reed, and it'll lock most Goose call. I mean, every Goose call will lock up. Bending the tip of the reed up, you won't stick the call, but you're gonna lose a lot of bottom end, because a lot of that air that you're losing underneath the reed would, if it wasn't bent, would vibrate that reed and create a sound that you could use out in the field. Now, you bend that up, you're losing a little bit on your bottom end of your tone range by doing that. So that's why I don't generally recommend doing that, you know, unless it's a last resort and it's just a poorly designed call, or your personal mechanics are such that you stick the call all the time because you use the tip of your tongue. Got any other specific questions? Hit us on Facebook. Hit us on the RNT Calls Facebook, my personal Facebook page, and we'll try to get back to you and answer any questions you have. And heck, we may even be able to film, you know, some further episodes if you want.
Woo! Woo! Welcome to Tuning Room TV. I can't sound like a little girl. I'm hoarse now.
Somebody got a hold of your shoulders.
I don't like Ric Flair, man. I'm straight up Randy Savage.
What about Hulk Hogan?
I can't do Hulk Hogan, man. I'm just kind of stuck to one, right? Randy Savage was my guy.
Hulk Hogan pretty much lost it. He was like, hey, you want to see my, what'd he say?
Once again, I work at Richardson. I can't be.
Right.
I can't be ripping. Yeah. I can't be ripping those shirts up in here talking about welcome to Tuning Room TV. That shit would be awesome. I could paint RNT on my chest, man. I could let y'all shave like quackhead in my chest hair.